In the spring of 1901, a crew of Greek sponge divers took shelter from a storm near a tiny island called Antikythera. Diving deeper than usual, one of them surfaced in a panic, describing a pile of corpses and horses lying on the seafloor. It wasn't a massacre. It was a 2,000-year-old Roman shipwreck, and buried inside its cargo was a corroded lump of bronze that would eventually rewrite what we thought ancient civilizations were capable of building. For decades, that lump of bronze sat in a museum drawer in Athens, mostly ignored. It had cracked apart into fragments, encrusted with marine growth, and at a glance it looked like scrap metal from a shipwreck of statues and coins. Nobody suspected it held any kind of mechanism. It wasn't until researchers noticed faint gear teeth embedded in the corrosion that the object began to look less like junk and more like the remains of a machine. The real breakthrough came in the 1970s, when British historian Richter Blueprint used industrial X-ray equipment to peer inside the fragments without destroying them. What he saw stunned him. At least 30 interlocking bronze gears, stacked in layers, meshing with a precision that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. Price called it the first known analog computer. But even his X-rays couldn't fully explain how the gears worked together, or what the device was actually built to calculate. It wasn't until 2005 that the mechanism gave up its deepest secrets. An international team brought in an 8-ton, custom-built CT scanner, powerful enough to see through solid bronze and reveal internal structures invisible to the naked eye. The scans, published in the journal Nature, revealed at least 30 gears, some smaller than a fingernail, cut with triangular teeth to a tolerance that modern engineers would respect. This wasn't a crude, astronomical toy. It was precision machinery. Digitally reconstructed, the mechanism reveals a device roughly the size of a shoebox, housed in a wooden case with bronze dials front and back. The front face displayed the zodiac and the Egyptian calendar on rotating rings, tracking the position of the sun and moon across the sky. Turn a hand crank, and pointers would sweep across the dial, simulating the heavens in miniature. It was in essence a mechanical model of the known universe, built by hand more than 2,000 years ago. Flip to the back of the device, and the complexity multiplies. A spiral dial tracked the metonic cycle, a 19-year pattern the ancient Greeks used to reconcile the lunar calendar with the solar year. Getting this right required gears with very specific tooth counts, meshing in exact ratios to mimic a real astronomical cycle mechanically. One miscount, one wrong gear, and the entire calendar would drift out of sync within a matter of years. Even more remarkable is the Saros dial, a second spiral on the back face that tracked eclipses. The Saros cycle is an 18-year pattern the Babylonians had discovered centuries earlier, and the mechanism's designers encoded it directly into the gearing. Tiny inscribed glyphs along the spiral even predicted whether an eclipse would be solar or lunar, and roughly what time of day it would occur. This wasn't guesswork. It was a working predictive model of celestial mechanics. Perhaps the most ingenious detail is a small pin-and-slot mechanism buried deep in the gear train. The moon doesn't move across the sky at a constant speed because its orbit is elliptical, and ancient astronomers had already figured that out. This tiny gear pair sped up and slowed down its rotation to simulate that irregular motion mechanically, using nothing but interlocking metal. It's a solution so elegant that engineers today still study it as a masterpiece of mechanical design. The front dial also included a smaller subsidiary display tracking the 4-year cycle of the Pan-Hellenic Games, including the Olympics. This wasn't purely scientific. It reflected the rhythm of ancient Greek civic and religious life, woven directly into an astronomical calculator. The mechanism wasn't just a scientific instrument. It was a cultural one, blending the mathematics of the cosmos with the calendar of everyday Greek society. Perhaps most tellingly, the mechanism's bronze surfaces were covered in tiny inscribed Greek text, essentially an instruction manual, explaining what each dial displayed and how to read it. Researchers estimate the full device once contained over 3,000 characters of text. This tells us something crucial. This wasn't a one-off curiosity built by a single genius in isolation. It was designed to be understood, used, and likely replicated by others trained in the same tradition. And this is where the real mystery begins. Nothing else like the Antikythera Mechanism has ever been found from the ancient world. No comparable gear-driven device appears again in the historical record for roughly 1,000 years, until geared astronomical clocks began appearing in medieval Europe and the Islamic world. A civilization possessed this level of mechanical sophistication, and then, as far as the archaeological record shows, the knowledge simply vanished. So who built it? The leading theories point to the island of Rhodes, a hub of astronomy and engineering in the 2nd century BCE, and possibly to a scientific lineage connected to the astronomer Hipparchus, whose lunar theory matches the mechanism's gearing almost precisely. Some researchers have floated a looser connection to Archimedes, though he died decades before the ship likely sank. What's certain is that whoever built it stood on the shoulders of serious, sustained scientific work. The research hasn't stopped. In 2024, astronomers at the University of Glasgow, specialists in detecting gravitational waves from colliding black holes, turned their statistical tools on the mechanism's calendar ring. By analyzing the spacing of tiny, surviving pinholes, they calculated the ring almost certainly held around 354 to 355 holes, matching the days of a lunar year with startling precision and ruling out a simpler 365-day design. That precision is almost hard to comprehend. The holes in that calendar ring were spaced roughly 0.028 millimeters apart, a manufacturing tolerance closer to modern clockmaking than anything else known from antiquity. Whoever drilled those holes by hand was working at the very edge of what human tools and human eyesight could achieve. It raises an uncomfortable question. How many other lost devices reached this same level of craftsmanship and simply didn't survive? But the mechanism wasn't flawless. A 2025 engineering study simulated the current gear geometry and found the triangular tooth design may have caused the gears to slip and jam after being cranked forward only a few months in simulated time. Researchers caution this could reflect 2,000 years of corrosion distorting the original teeth, rather than a true design flaw. Still, it's a humbling reminder. Even history's most advanced known machine may have been a brilliant work in progress. That imperfection is oddly reassuring. It tells us this wasn't a magical artifact from a lost golden age, but the product of real human engineers, iterating, calculating, and occasionally getting the math slightly wrong, just like engineers do today. The genius wasn't in achieving perfection. It was in the ambition to model the entire visible universe using nothing but bronze, gears, and geometry. So why did this knowledge disappear? The most likely answer isn't mystical, it's historical fragility. Advanced Hellenistic science depended on institutions like the Library of Alexandria, on skilled workshops, and on chains of teacher-to-student transmission. Wars, conquests, and the slow decline of those institutions under Roman rule could easily have severed that chain. Complex knowledge doesn't need a catastrophe to vanish. Sometimes it just needs a generation that nobody teaches. Today, multiple teams around the world have built fully functional replicas based on the CT scan data, and they work. Turn the crank, and the dials genuinely track the sun, moon, and eclipse cycles with real accuracy. Seeing a modern reconstruction spin to life is perhaps the closest we'll ever get to watching an ancient Greek engineer demonstrate their creation for the very first time. And yet, roughly 2/3 of the original mechanism is still missing, likely scattered across the seafloor near Antikythera. Marine archaeologists have returned to that wreck site repeatedly over the past decade, recovering statues, jewelry, and ship components, always hoping for more fragments of the device itself. Every dive raises the same tantalizing possibility that the most important piece of the puzzle is still down there, waiting. The Antikythera Mechanism doesn't prove that ancient civilizations had computers, spaceships, or forgotten superscience. What it proves is something arguably more important. The human curiosity and mathematical ambition have always run far deeper than we give history credit for. Somewhere between myth and machine, on a sinking Roman ship 2,000 years ago, someone built a bronze model of the universe and dared to believe it could be understood.